Hello, 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 influencers. Hello, everyone. Hope your day has been amazing. Today is Wondrous Wednesday, and tonight's topic is going to be recognize, release, reset, and restore. So, Wow Inspired is all about educating, serving, and supporting aspiring leaders and career professionals. A lot of why Wow Inspired and the reason behind the Wow Inspired movement is because what I realize is easy for us to become consumed in the competitiveness of today's society. However, it is important to know that the competitiveness will only get you the win, that you will be spotlighted for a moment. However, when you have wisdom with strategy, as well as some type of foundation that the wisdom with the strategy stands on, then you have the tools needed in order to produce a life that's going to bring consecutive wins. So tonight, as I've said before, I'm always given adjectives to define the day of the week. So wondrous, what does that mean? How is wondrous defined? So wondrous means, or the definition is, inspiring a feeling of wonder or delight, or marvelous, wondrous, inspirational. All of those words coincide with wondrous. So when just thinking about the term wondrous, this morning when I put up my post this morning in the Wow Inspired Movement page, I talked about, let me affirm you. You are winning. You are amazing. You are victorious. You are in your Nehemiah season. So just that alone, I just was actually flowing from what God had given me in terms of just affirming his people. And it was so profound because after I posted the status, I went to dig for some research about the book of Nehemiah. And when I started to look for the research, what I found out was the book of Ezra as well as the book of Nehemiah are key literature sources for the period of restoration. So that was really like amazing to me, just to be able to identify that I was simply just affirming all of you this morning, just to tell you, you are winning. You are a warrior. You are enough. You have what it takes. And you are in your Nehemiah season. And when I said that, this topic of recognize, release, reset, and restore came to me. But when I went to study additional information about the book of Nehemiah, because I've talked about Nehemiah in previous broadcasts about Nehemiah building the wall and how Nehemiah had to be laser focused and how Nehemiah just was, in a place where he understood that he could not allow the distractions to deter him from fulfilling the assignment. And once the wall had went up, everyone knew that it was nobody but God that helped Nehemiah to complete the work. So when I started to study the book of Nehemiah, and I found out that the book of Nehemiah was one of the key literature sources for a period of restoration, right? And when I think about the term restoration, I start to think about, being restored. And to be restored is to obtain anything that you've released and you've let out, but to retain it in a way that also brings rest and storage. So I just got that, y'all. That just came to me. That wasn't something that was given to me earlier. But when you think about the term restoration, you think about obtaining something additional to add to what you've already have or what you've already released. You obtain it, but even the more to store it up while getting rest. Ah, man, that was good. That was good. So just thinking about the topic, recognize, release, reset, and restore. I just think about this story in this book of Nehemiah. And I think about just, the process that Nehemiah had to go through in this book. Hi, Veronica. I just think about the process that Nehemiah had to go through in this book. And because of his process, he endured until the very end. And in the end, he was restored. There was a level of restoration that came to Nehemiah. And it was amazing. Hello, Minister April. It was just amazing. So when I said this morning, Wondrous Wednesday, and I just begin to affirm through the status, and I would say you are winning, you are a warrior, just to affirm you that yes, you're in the right season. Yes, things are happening because it is the season for it to happen. I said today in Bible study, one of my favorite scriptures is knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Knowing the trying of your faith worketh patience. Do you not know that your faith cannot be exercised? You cannot be elevated to another level of faith until you're tried. Yes, blessings to you too, Minister April. You can't be elevated to another level of faith until you're tried, because the scripture says, knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience, right? So, hey sis, thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Charlene, for tuning in. The scripture said, knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience. So this morning when I was just affirming you all, I was just, being led by God just to affirm that, yes, you are in the right season and you are worthy. You are winning. You are a warrior. You are in your Nehemiah season. And you shall be restored. So when I got off, I literally went and I'm like, oh my goodness, what, God, tell me more. I started to study. And when I started to study, this is when I learned, like, I can't even play. These are notes from me studying about the book of Nehemiah. When I started to study, I learned that Ezra and Nehemiah were key literature sources for the period of restoration. So immediately I got the topic, recognize, release, reset, and restore. So even in the story or in the book of Nehemiah, we know the story about Nehemiah building the wall. I've talked about it in previous broadcasts about how Nehemiah had to be consistent in his work, in his assignment. He realized that, listen, the only way that I can complete this is if I stay focused. I can't allow myself to get off of track because of the distractions. So Nehemiah realized that even in all that he went through, as the scripture said, that the trying of his faith worketh patience. So he had patience in his long suffering. But tonight, the reason why I said recognize, release, reset, and restore is because before you can actually sit in your period of restoration, before you can get comfortable in your season of restoration, you have to be able to identify and recognize, number one, recognize what you had to go through, what you had to grow through in order to get to the season of restoration. So when you start to recognize, when you start to pinpoint the very things that cause you to be happy about your season of restoration, you can then really embrace your affirmation. You can really embrace not just hearing somebody tell you, you are worthy, you are winning, you are a warrior, you are in your Nehemiah season. This is going to happen for you. You can not only hear them saying it, you don't not only read what you see, but your spirit begins to say it, and then you begin to believe it. Because the reality is, I can tell you anything, but until you get to a place where you believe the very things that I'm saying about you, when you get to the place that you believe them, then that's when manifestation starts to take place, right? So when you begin to recognize the transition and the process that you had to go through in order to be in a place where you're receiving consecutive wins, where life is really, you're in a good place, you feel like you're at another level of peace you've never experienced before, when you begin to recognize what you had to go through, then you begin to really embrace the season of restoration. Not only recognize it, when you begin to identify the things you had to release in your process, then you become, there's another level of focus that takes place. When you start to recognize what I had to go through, what I had to release, right? Then after I released those things that was keeping me from growing to the next level, after I had released them, then I had to reset. Because now a lot of things about me is changing. The places I used to go, it's changing. The people I used to associate with, those things are changing. My hunger is changing. The things I'm feeding my soul is changing. So you have to literally get to a place where you remind yourself of the recognize, release, reset, and restore that process, right? So again, when I said this morning, you're in your Nehemiah season. When I started to research, when I started to look up additional information, study the book of Nehemiah, the studies say that the books of Ezra and Nehemiah were key literature sources for a period of restoration. Key literature is the component, is the two words that stand out to me. Like, these are the two books that literally people were relying on to take them through their process, because they knew that these books produced substance that was going to not only give them rest, but additional resources to store up so that they would never have lack. Yes, restoration just isn't, oh, God's going to give you rest. No, restoration is when you have good rest and you have additional sources, when you have additional resources, where you have more than enough, where you can be a blessing to LaDanya, you can be a blessing to Kai, you can be a blessing to April, you can be a blessing to Vicky, you can be a blessing to whomever and still not have lack. But in order for you to embrace that restoration period, you have to identify, recognize the process that you had to go through. Also identify the things that you had to release in order for God to reset you so that He can restore you. Because this thing really starts at the recognition, like, I need help. This isn't working the way I desired it to work. So I can't do it on my own. So I had to recognize that at some point my will wasn't working for me. I had to recognize it. I had to go through a process. And when I went through that process, it did not feel good. It did not sound good, and it didn't look good to others. But when I became intentional about recognizing, right? Recognizing that this thing ain't just about me. When I became intentional about understanding that in order for me to elevate to the next level, I have to release some things. Once I release those things, then God Himself can reset me. And once I allow God to reset me, once I'm in the period of my reset, listen, I push the reset, He starts to reset me. Guess what happens? He then begins to restore. But the period of restoration isn't just about rest. It's about, in addition, Yes, and I was reading in Nehemiah, the 13th chapter, which is the last, hello, Shamika. I was reading in Nehemiah, which is the last chapter of the book of Nehemiah, in the 13th verse. And the third, y'all, the third. Somebody said, no, the second. It says, because they had met the Israelites with food and water, but had hired Babylon to call a curse down on them, our God, however, turned a curse into a blessing. I don't know too many people that can say that they've seen an individual turn a curse into a blessing. But what I'm here to let you know tonight is that when I said this morning, you are in your Nehemiah season, and I said, God, give me more, because literally that thing just came out of me. When I said, God, give me more, and I began to research and study the book of Nehemiah, this says that Nehemiah and Ezra were the key literature sources for a period of restoration. So then the topic came to me: recognize, release, reset, and restore. You don't have to be in your restoration season and feel like I can't celebrate out loud where I am. No, baby. Tonight, the encouragement is you're in your restoration period. You deserve to be there. You have to recognize what you went through in your process. You also have to recognize what you had to release so that God could reset and restore. So when you get to a place of restoration, understand that restoration comes from God. Restoration comes from God. When you get to your season of restoration where you can relax, you don't have no care in the world is what it feels like. You can rest and have more than enough stored up. Yeah. So I broke this thing down not too long ago. Restoration. So ration is something that's ongoing. It's something that's ongoing. However, in order to keep it ongoing, there's some maintenance that you have to do in the process. And this is why I come on live on Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock. And this is why I come on live on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. to give you the maintenance. Because guess what? You have to make sure, I said a few lives ago, be intentional about what you feed your soul, because what you feed your soul is what will come out of you, what will flow from you. And I gotta be honest. Listen, when I think about when I recognize what I had to release for God to reset and then for him to restore, listen, I am not going to be pitiful in my season of restoration. I refuse to be pitiful. So there's another R to add on to that. Recognize, release, reset, restore, and then refuse. Refuse to go through your process again. Because when you begin to recognize, when you have the reflection, I don't know what it is with these R's tonight, but when you have the reflection of what you had to go through that process, the reflection, to recognize what you had to release for God to reset and him to restore, to bring you to a place of restoration, then you get in your mind, I refuse to go back. I refuse to go back. I refuse to take and settle for anything less than what God has already promised me. And let me tell you something. If you're ever in a place where you're uncertain, you're unsure, listen, it will behoove you to pick up your Bible, read Ezra and Nehemiah, because it says here, the study says they were key literature sources for a period of restoration. I mean, restoration, this is where you're going to find some answers as to how to deal with some of the challenges that are coming. Because even in this book, even in both of these books, they had to go through a process. They had to recognize in order to release so that God can reset and then God can restore. And when they went through that process, right? I mean, I talked on another broadcast about Nehemiah building the wall, and they're coming to him several times to try to get him to come off of his post, off of his job to defend what he already knew, God had already written for him to defend it again, he was like, I know, I recognize what I had to release to get to this point where I am consistent about what God has called me to do. And because I recognized and I had to release some things, even the things that I did not want to release, even the things that was not comfortable for me to release, I had to release some people that I love very dearly. I had to release some places that I enjoy going to. I had to release some of the vocabulary that kept me on my crutches, that carried me. I had to release those things so that God could reset me. When God did the resetting, he put me back on the wall to build it. And when I got on the wall this time, I was reminded of the process. There was a reflection of what I had to give up, what I had to release. And because of that reflection, because of what I had to release, because of what I had to acknowledge, because of what I had to recognize, I cannot afford to go through this process again. So wondrous, back to wondrous. What does it mean to be wondrous? The definition, we talked about it earlier, is inspiring a feeling of wonder, a feeling of delight. In order for you to say, oh, I'm wondrous. And I had one of the sisters at my church, Sister Jackie, I just loves it. I'm like, how are you today? She's like, wondrous. And I was just like, oh, I just love it. I just love when she responds that way. And then when I looked up the definition, it just means to be in a delightful place. It does not mean I'm satisfied all the time. It just means that I know that even in this place, even when I'm not feeling like God is coming through for me, I am still delightful. I am still wonderful because, again, I had to recognize what I had to release so that God can reset and then he can restore. And because of all of those things, I refuse to murmur and complain, even when all eyes are against me, even when people say, Shay speaks. Oh yeah, you're not called to do that. I refuse because this process wasn't easy. This process wasn't something that just happened overnight. The transition wasn't as smooth as people thought it was. I had to go through a period of releasing. I had to go through a period of allowing God to reset me. And while God was resetting me, guess what? I was sitting down. And as he began to restore, he can gradually allow me to get up. So everybody's not going to take off running. Yes, everybody's not going to take off running, Minister April, like you. Or everybody's not going to take off running like you, Shamika. But the thing is, the glory in it all is being able to recognize what you had to release so God can reset and restore. And once you identify, listen, I sacrificed. I had to come to terms with myself that, listen, and recognize that this thing is not anything I can do on my own. I can't save myself. God saved me from me. Hello? I don't know about anybody else, but God saved me from me because I kept myself in a mental prison. Yeah, nobody wants to really talk about it. I don't mind because the reality is what I believe is that there is a level of transparency and there is a level of transparency and there's a level of realness that there is a people hungry for. They want the truth. They want the solemn truth, nothing but the truth. So help us all, God. Like, for real. Like, I can't sit here and say, oh, well, yeah, honey, I just woke up one night and everything is good. I was walking on cloud nine. Absolutely not. There was a season I had to go through. I had to recognize I can't do this thing on my own. I've tried it. My solutions didn't work. My solutions did not work. So even with Wow Inspired, I was like, Shay speaks this. I was going back and forth. And literally one day I came home from work and the Bible was on the table and it wasn't even my intentions to read the Bible. And I opened up the Bible and it opened to the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs is full of wisdom. If you are looking for wisdom principles, the book of Proverbs is where you need to be. So I was reading and, wisdom, all of this wisdom, just popped out. And it's so easy to be right. But when you are right, do I always have to answer because I got the right answer? No. Wisdom tells me that even with the right answer, it's not the time. So one of the scriptures that I love is, all things are lawful, but not expedient. So God can say, tell me something today, or I could know the answer to a question, but it's not the timing for me to say, hey, I know the answer over here, over here. It's not about that. Because sometimes we got to step back and let other people shine, regardless of what we know. Or we can play, we can play this and do this thing the right way and offer each other the support, each other the advice, to give them a chance. Give them a chance to feel good about doing something or knowing something, or eager to tell somebody something that they know. But we're so quick because, oh God, I know the answer. Call on me, call on me, call on me. No, it's not always about being right. Sometimes not sometimes, all the time. In all instances, wisdom will always outlast trying to be right. Yes, so that is my message tonight, you guys. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Again, we are on YouTube for anyone that cannot access Facebook while at work or whatever. YouTube channel at search I Am Shay Speaks. And you can watch all of our replays on the YouTube channel. I just appreciate you all. And remember, to be wondrous, it simply means to be delightful and to be wonderful. To be, wondrous is the root word there is wonder. So, just be inspired to be wondrous even in your process, because it's not easy to grow through a process, even having hopes that I'm not going to be in this particular phase that much longer. So I am literally working on a webinar that will be a small investment on the purpose process. I want to get down and dirty with anyone that wants to join that webinar and have those discussions and those conversations about the purpose process, what the purpose process looks like, how and what it feels like to walk the purpose process. Because listen, every process isn't the same. The purpose process is a divine process that one who has purpose on their life, great purpose, great call, like all of you influencers, that purpose process is detrimental. It is very serious, and it is to be handled delicately, as well as the way to handle it delicately is to understand what that purpose process looks like. So tonight, I am here to affirm you again. You are a warrior. You are winning. You are worthy. You are worth it. You are in your Nehemiah season, and the period and the season of restoration does not simply mean to restore. It means to obtain good rest, as well as to obtain additional resources that you may store up, not only for you, but for the nation that you were called to influence. I am Shay. I am here to inspire the influencer in you. We are here every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. And every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. You guys feel free to share this out. Feel free to catch the playback on YouTube or even on the Wow Inspired page. Y'all share the Wow Inspired page. Don't be stingy, because that's one thing about me. I do these lives because, listen, every coach needs a coach. Every teacher needs a teacher. Yes, anybody can say Jesus is my boss, but no. You have to be intentional about getting with someone that's going to teach you, give you the wisdom, and help you to identify a clear, actionable strategies that will take you to a place of wealth where you are consecutively winning. Y'all, guess what? 21 days, I'm going to be graduating. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And tomorrow, I get inducted into the Honor Society, the National Honor Society. That's the Pi Theta Kappa, PTK. I'm super excited. And be on the lookout for the promotion, the promotional ad for the book project, Breaking the Code of Silence. Now, I will be taking pre-orders. The book release party is due to happen on June the 29th. So my birthday is June the 26th. There will be no birthday celebration because we will be celebrating the release of the book project, Breaking the Code of Silence Now. So again, you guys, this is the Wow Inspired movement. Share platform. Please, please, please reach out to me if you would like to be featured on a broadcast. I would love to have your perspective, your input. I would love to have your support in putting some of the other components together. I'm looking for those influencers that don't mind, that says, listen, I'm like Nehemiah. I know I'm in a season of restoration, but even while I'm in my season of restoration, I'm willing to work because I know what it took for me to recognize, to release the things that I needed to release so God could reset and restore me. So again, Shay, inspiring the influencer in you. Love you all to life. Have a great, great, great rest of your week. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of our viewers, all of our supporters, all of everyone that has decided, listen, Wow Inspired is just not about Shay, but I see the vision. I see that this is going to be a global movement. And I want to say I was there from the very start. So you guys look out. June, we will be launching the Wow Inspired Kids Edition. I will give you more about that later in the month. But just to let you know, we are shaking and we are moving because Wow Inspired will be a global movement. We are here to inspire the influencer in you. Jesus.